Have you ever encountered the saying, "You can't please everyone"? This sentiment may vary depending on your audience. Daily, it's repeated somewhere across the globe. Greetings, everyone. I am William Baker. Married for 26 years, 3 months, and 21 days. I met my wife, Julia, at a Rick James concert in Cleveland, Ohio in 1985. Julia was breathtakingly beautiful, her jeans tight enough to introduce me to the concept of camel toe, a term I had heard but didn't understand until that moment. Julia's smile was sugary sweet, her eyes sparkling green like midnight lakes. Her eyes shimmered. I was instantly smitten upon our first encounter. I attended the concert with my brother Harry and cousin Mike. Harry brought us along because his girlfriend Sarah needed to be accompanied by her sisters. Sarah was the eldest, Julia the youngest, while Mike ended up with Martha, a woman who weighed 230 pounds and gave me quite a scare. 185 pounds was my weight, with Mike being smaller than me. Besides Martha's size, the evening turned out splendidly. Mike unwound and appreciated Martha's company. Julia and I had a wonderful time together. The concert's conclusion left me disgruntled. To summarize, 6 months later, Julia and I got married, an event filled with joy that didn't wrap up until 6:30 am. During the night, we exchanged our vows 3 times, twice before midnight and once before departing for our honeymoon. The ensuing 25 years flew by. At age 46, I became a father of 4: William Jr., 24, Mildred, 22, Justin, 21, and Hank, 19. I didn't particularly care for the names Julia picked for our kids, but Mildred was her aunt's name, and the rest were from her favorite boy band. Anything to keep my wife contented, as they say, if mommy isn't happy, nobody is. At 45, Julia remained a stunning mommy. Several friends struggled to accept that Julia was a mother of 4 adult children due to her vigorous lifestyle. However, they were unaware that Julia adhered strictly to health practices, engaging in regular exercise and balanced diet. In private, I had to occasionally procure prescription medication to maintain pace with her energy level. The situation remained stable until Hank departed for college, which led to alterations in Julia's behavior. She developed a heightened desire for intimacy, began dressing provocatively, and reappeared with a noticeable camel toe. Initially, I assumed she was growing more attractive towards me, but my suspicions were confirmed when I saw her leaving for work in a black micro-mini skirt. It was evident that something had changed, and I intended to discover the truth. Upon returning home from work, I signaled Julia to sit down. She acknowledged my intention for discussion, but claimed she lacked the time at present. "Julia, I have a meeting, so we can discuss it tomorrow morning. You're angry because I've wronged you, but you have 2 options: accept the situation or leave. Filing for divorce would be expensive and damaging to the children. In the end, I'd get half of everything, leaving you a lonely, bankrupt old man," according to Julia. Her words were disrespectful, and it felt premeditated. For years, Julia has shown signs of disregard for me. Many believe that being gentle speaks volumes about one's strength. Perhaps my desire to remain calm was gradually eroding me. But this was something different. Julia seems delusional if she thinks she can find someone else and return as if I'm just some easily replaceable man. You know, she's sitting there crying over her beer, mourning her husband who's been with another woman. That could be me. My heart is aching, but I can't live without her. For an entire year, he allows her to sleep with numerous men, but still, she departs from him. Such a situation never transpired in my case. Infidelity leads to immediate expulsion. Julia, I'm saying this only once. If you contemplate, attempt, or commit adultery against me, it will be the most regrettable day of your life. Over the years, I have repeatedly articulated my stance on infidelity in a marriage. I warned you that if you attempted to cheat on me, not just you but also your lover and everyone involved would face consequences. She scoffed and ascended to the bedroom. I retired to my room and contacted Harry. I informed him about the entire situation unfolding. "Harry, I had been hoping this day would never arrive. But if she proceeds, our prearranged plan will be set into motion tomorrow." The plan was devised back in college as a means of saving time and money in case of divorce. Julia was unaware that we didn't own the house. She only owned her car, while I retained mine as well. The house was in Harry's ownership. Harry's house belonged to Mike, and Mike's house was mine, with Julia not being involved due to Mike's prior marriage. In case of divorce, potential issues might arise between the spouses of Mike and Harry. We've prepared for such situations. I hope she reconsiders her decision. After hearing the front door slam from talking to Harry, she had 2 hours to change her mind before carrying out her plan, which was 8:30 in the evening. The following morning, Julia returned home around 10:15 am, expressing concern for William. She repeatedly called home, but received no response. As she drove, Julia contemplated strategies to get William on board for a future similar incident. Last night was an exceptional experience. I engaged with 3 young men, leaving my jaw and rear end sore, yet it was a fantastic fall. It was worth the discomfort, as William will recover. How do I make such events recurrent with William's consent? Despite my affection for him, I require more than he can offer. I will keep him until he consents to being a cuckold. It will be tough on him, but he understands he can't live without this woman. He'll comply because he loves me so much. That was Julia's strategy, but William had different plans. Upon her return, Harry's car was in the lot and a U-Haul truck was parked in the driveway. Harry, Mike, and William were loading boxes into the truck. Julia inquired about the situation from Harry. He informed her that the landlord wants her to pack up and vacate the house. Julia became enraged and attempted to halt their actions. Harry summoned the police. When the police arrived, the first officer questioned who owned the house. William indicated himself. The officer escorted William back to the truck, while another officer guided Julia around the truck so she could explain her stance. While she was conversing with the officer, William signaled to Harry. For approximately 10 minutes, William and Harry discussed with the police officers. The officers deliberated over the predicament for a while. They subsequently approached Julia, instructing her to vacate the premises. Julia inquired about the reason behind her eviction, while Harry was permitted to remain. The officer stated that the property owner demanded her departure. It was classified as a civil matter. Evicting the proprietor isn't illegal, but if the time frame wasn't exceeding 30 days, she could file a lawsuit in small claims court. However, during this period, she was required to vacate the dwelling. Since Julia's name was absent from the deed or mortgage, her departure was mandatory. Julia glanced disdainfully at William and departed. William exclaimed that her belongings would be shifted to her mother's residence within the next 20 minutes. Unfazed, Julia didn't look back. As far as she was concerned, William and Harry would bear the consequences of this action. Instead of going to her mother's house, Julia opted for Harry's residence, disclosing the situation to his wife Cindy. Although Cindy didn't appreciate what Julia did, she empathized with her. It appeared to her that life was slipping away. Cindy phoned Harry's cell phone and confided in him about the predicament with William and his unfounded pride. Cindy revealed to Harry that occasionally a woman's path might deviate and she might bend some regulations while seeking self-discovery. Harry listened attentively as his wife spoke and then responded, "Cindy, if by bending rules you imply overspending on my truck or abandoning work without disclosing it honestly, then those are compromises I can tolerate. However, if you're referring to going out with a few men, then you're not the woman I wed, and we must part ways separately." Cindy pondered over Harry's recent words. Harry supported financially, covered all expenses, she had credit cards and access to funds. Additionally, he made love to her frequently, 3 or 4 times a week. Moreover, when she felt the onset of aging and questioned her attractiveness, Harry would visit, drop her off anywhere convenient, and rejuvenate her spirit. Scarcely an occurrence, but when it did, she felt so incredibly desirable she ruled the universe. They traversed various global destinations for their vacations. Cindy pondered for roughly 45 seconds. How could I possibly exist without Harry? Cindy gently shook her head, as if to dispel a cobweb. My life is intertwined with Harry's, he's my very essence. Cindy inquired from Harry about his estimated arrival time. Harry mentioned it would be a couple hours. Cindy concurred, expressed her love for him, and bid farewell. Then, with ardor in her gaze, Cindy directed her attention towards Julia. Get lost. Julia, you imbecile. You've ruined your life, and now you're trying to wreck mine. I cherish my husband. He dotes on me. He shoulders all our expenses and has never grumbled once. He financed our 3 children's college education and helped each secure their first vehicle. He pampered me like royalty, and because you opted for infidelity until you grew old, you destroyed your life. Were you aware William was planning to take you to Spain? Leave my residence immediately or risk succumbing to idiocy and emulating you, Julia pondered. It seemed her decision might have been ill-advised. Instead of remaining with Cindy, Julia chose to visit her mother's home. Meanwhile, Cindy was en route to Victoria's Secret in search of the most seductive items. Upon arrival, she purchased an item and muttered to herself, "I won't destroy my life, you fool." Subsequently, Cindy stopped by Jay's adult bookstore and procured a bottle of lubricant and 2 videos. Upon arriving home, Cindy was reclined in the dining room table's center, one hand clutching a lubricant bottle and the other a Hershey's chocolate bar. She smiled and said, "Darling, the decision is yours." Unsurprisingly, Harry enjoyed an exceptional evening of intimacy. It wasn't until Monday that William heard from Harry again. Once Julia was securely away, it was time for the subsequent phase of the plan, inflicting pain on Julia. Too much torment he endured, yet William refused to shed tears over past mistakes. Equally suffering would be Julia. Upon arriving at her mother's house, Julia regained her swagger. Unaware, William was in for a harsh awakening. I intend to clean his house out thoroughly. I aim to control him and everything he possesses. A few days later, Julia pondered over why William hadn't attempted to contact her. She sent emails, texts, and left hundreds of messages for him. She knew he was receiving them. Being obstinate, William remained silent. In Julia's belief, William couldn't live without her. At that moment, Julia thought, William is thinking about me now. She was correct. He was contemplating why he tolerated her behavior for so long. To Julia, William had always loved her unconditionally, which seemed evident to her. Julia's mother began questioning the length of time her daughter had been viewing life through rose-colored glasses. It was past due for a wake-up call. Life is hard, and then it ends. Does Julia have a maid? Julia was roused from her thoughts when her mother asked a question. The inquiry prompted Julia to respond. Does Julia have a maid? Her mother inquired. Not at present, Julia responded. Then you had better get moving and tidy the place up, your mother commanded. Go attend to the baby, it's morning, and there are tasks to accomplish, Julia's mother advised. Julia fervently hoped she would return home soon. She was aware of her mother's demanding nature. It had been 4 days of torture for Julia. Clean here, wash that, rearrange yourself. Julia wasn't sure how much more she could endure. Who is speaking? Asked the man approaching Julia. Julia didn't recognize him, but he seemed familiar. When she confirmed it was indeed her, the man handed her a package and said, "Consider this settled." He then departed. Baffled, Julia pondered what was being resolved. Upon returning, Julia's mother discovered her daughter passed out in the front yard. It transpired that the delivered papers were divorce documents from William. Seeking to awaken Julia, her mother used a garden hose to splash water in her face. Jolted awake, Julia hissed in response. Julia glanced at the documents, on the verge of fainting once more when her mom doused her again. Get moving, lazy girl, and get inside the house. Quit dozing off in the yard. Mom, what should I do? Julia inquired. Mom, your father's to blame for this, Julia was told. For years, he's been filling you with false hope. If we had taught you to think and act like a woman instead of letting your father pamper you like royalty, you wouldn't be here now. You know how your father and I grew up on the farm, don't you? Harsh labor, long hours, endless days, and short nights. Your father wished the best for you, so he made sacrifices so you could have a better life. And yet, you spit on his efforts. Your father adored William as if he were one of our sons. Your father would be disgusted in his grave if he knew you were coming to him like a disgraced harlot. I heard your conversations with William and wondered how it was his fault that you couldn't keep your legs closed. I wanted to come over, slap you, and throw you out of my house. In life, you've produced something extraordinary, a man like William. Numerous women long for a partner such as him. He's an exceptional catch, exhibiting loyalty, diligence, and a lack of complaining. He'd give his life for you. Yet, here you are letting go of him because you perceive yourself as unattractive and aging. But remember, immortality is not our destiny. We all live and die at different paces. If your father were alive today, I would be blinding him in anger, leaving you to sleep outside. However, instead, I'm enlightening a 45-year-old who seems less than intelligent. Julia, we did not raise an imbecile, but that's exactly what you have become. Julia, your special place is not adorned with silver, gold, or platinum, nor does it harbor Superman's cape. Just to clarify, the only variance between sex and love lies in the emotions you feel for the person you are with during those acts. Let us revisit the day you lost your spouse. You sought physical intimacy, but where did you go when you were finished? You attempted to return home. Why, Julia pondered for a bit. This is my residence, Mom. This is where I belong. That's why you find yourself here alone now, Julia, her mom retorted. You relinquished William's home, your body was his sanctuary, and you defiled it. You contaminated him, your actions carried him to new extremes. But now, you are just another fallen woman who attributes everything to her spouse. He isn't youthful, attractive, muscular, or lustful, but I have a query for you, dear. Where are your conquests now? Julia's mom scanned the area. I can't see them anywhere. Where is your husband, Julia? William resides in that dwelling you once called home. And don't underestimate it, he still yearns for you. But not for long. A woman with larger breasts and a more alluring derriere will soon appear and help him erase you from his memory. Yet isn't that what you did to him? You dismissed the fact that he was your husband. Now he won't be. Her mom detested communicating in such a manner, but she felt compelled to make Julia grasp the harsh reality. Julia had always dwelled in her own isolated universe. It's on Julia now to understand that life isn't straightforward. Julia is bracing herself for a taste of truth. Sitting across a table were Julia, her attorney, and William along with his lawyer. Julia had employed John Patterson, renowned for securing substantial settlements. She hoped this would prompt William to accept counseling and cancel the divorce. John vaguely recognized William's lawyer, struggling to recall their encounter, assuming it was a new acquaintance. However, fate might have played a wicked trick. William's lawyer introduced himself, Kyle Jacobs. The mention of Kyle Jacobs made John feel as if a restraining order had been imposed upon him. Kyle Jacobs was an attorney from Jacobs, Jackson, Beard, and Hall, a prestigious law firm in New York City. Excusing himself, John expressed the need for privacy with his client. Julia became curious about the situation, leaving the room with her attorney. Julia, is your husband wealthy? John inquired. Not wealthy, but we manage, she replied, puzzled by the question. The top divorce attorney in the nation, representing your spouse, is Julia, a lawyer renowned for her work with senators, billionaires, millionaires, and over half of the Fortune 500. In her latest case, a husband worth $12 billion had his wife demanding half, which she settled for a Harlem apartment and $25,000. Half of Julia's team are former judges, with her personal attorney being a previous Supreme Court justice. This led John to question how they could afford such a firm. It was only then that Julia began to worry, realizing her oversight in the conference room. Later, Kyle suggested she should have contacted him and Mike more frequently, as they were relatives. Unbeknownst to John and Julia, Kyle, Mike, Harry, and William were all cousins who rarely met, their last encounter being 10 years ago, a time when Julia chose not to attend. This left John pondering if Julia might have been unfaithful during that meeting. They returned to the house where William and Kyle were discussing their impending golf excursion. Caught off guard, John inquired about Julia's arrangements. Kyle bluntly responded that Julia would leave with only her clothes, nothing more or less. Unaware of a bargaining party, John found no one to negotiate with. Harry owned the house, and both Julia and William had their individual cars, bank accounts, so there was nothing left for Julia to claim as hers. Unbeknownst to her, it was all gone. In a fit of rage, Julia stood up and exclaimed, No way in hell. I won't let him have everything. I just want William back. After calming down, she asked William to step aside for a few minutes alone. Upon the departure of both lawyers, William and Julia shared an emotional moment, with Julia expressing her regret for ruining their marriage and causing pain to the man she loved. She vowed to sign over everything to him, seeking only his return in her life. I don't want to lose you to another woman, but if it comes to that, I'll tolerate it. William, I implore you, consider it. Don't end us without giving it a try at least once. William gazed at Julia. To him, she had always been beautiful, yet now she seemed like an aging prostitute. Yet, he still loved her. William instructed the lawyers to retreat into the house. Sign the documents, Julia. You'll receive nothing, no alimony, no pension, nothing. If you don't, we won't file the papers. They will be stored in a safety deposit box for a year. Julia, you've caused this mess, and you're going to have to fix it. In a year, you're out. Do you agree, Julia? Julia inquired about where she should sign. John informed her that once signed, it cannot be undone. Julia agreed to sign everything for a chance to demonstrate her love for William. William, I temporarily lost control, but I would live in a garbage bin behind the house and consume dog urine just to have a chance with you. William found himself speechless, so he remained quiet. William and Kyle departed. Julia felt elated and headed to her mother's place to gather her belongings. After filling the car with as much as she could, she drove back home humming a tune. William would never repent his decision of giving her this opportunity. Upon reaching home, there was a note on the door. It read, Julia, come in, make yourself at home. Julia smiled to herself, thinking, William adores me and has something extraordinary planned. The note continued, Julia, watch the DVD. Just press play. Have a glass of wine while you watch. You'll need it. Julia followed the instructions. On the DVD, 3 women, among the sexiest Julia had ever seen, appeared. At the end of the DVD, William emerged on stage. Julia, he said, I've loved you for most of my life. You're the mother of my children. You were my greatest love, but you squandered that affection for a wild night of monkey sex and empty excitement. After a night of reckless passion, I forfeited my partner, confidante, and spouse. Can your trust in me endure a year of unfettered freedom as you advised comparable to the liberation you experienced? If you can last a year, I'll return. If not, then life persists. The initial month was a living inferno for Julia, but she persevered. By the second month, she had acquired a new DVD, which depicted William with the same trio of women. In the film's denouement, William encouraged her to stay resilient. Simultaneously, a woman's voice whispered, Take her, William. Why require her when you can have all 3 of us? Julia wept profusely following this, but she steadfastly believed that William would come back. On the 4th day of the 5th month, a knock came at the door. When Julia opened it, Kyle stood there, delivering a letter from William. Gazing at Julia, Kyle murmured an apology if it was worth it. Then he departed. Julia sat down and wept. In essence, William had abandoned her. Julia, read the letter. Regrettably, William is seeking divorce. You strayed from our path, damaging our marriage. For the past 5 months, I have been suffering in every imaginable way. The only thing I can express is, wow, I'm exhausted. You'll find me sleeping on the stairs. Kyle handed you that letter to give you an excuse to leave the kitchen so I could slip in. If you betray me again, I will retaliate harshly. That's a promise. You can bank on it. At last, you have emerged from your foolishness. We are seeing a therapist, although I find it preposterous. The only action for which I take blame is not punishing you before you left. I didn't anticipate that you would depart. Consequently, I stated that affection from me wouldn't be forthcoming for a while. I'm too drained to socialize. Affectionately, William. Julia scrutinized the letter once more. It indicated that William was upstairs. Julia rushed to the bathroom and cleaned her face. She removed all her garments and hurried upstairs. Julia hesitated in front of their bedroom door. I hope this isn't a cruel trick. Julia entered the room. William wasn't present. She sank to her knees, weeping. Soon, the sound of a shower ceasing and a bathroom door opening followed. William emerged, towel drying himself. "Why are you crying?" he inquired, startling Julia, who was too stunned to respond. The man standing before her was transformed, his beer belly vanished, revealing defined abs. His muscles bulged, his taut backside replaced the gray hair on his head. Julia blinked, then looked at him again. This was not the man she had wed. William assisted Julia to her feet, and they shared their first embrace in months. I won't reveal what transpired that night. However, I will disclose that for several days afterwards, Julia walked awkwardly. Their counseling sessions were intense, but beneficial. Yet, William consistently reminded Julia of her precarious position. Last week, William and Julia commemorated their 60th wedding anniversary. For a while, they vanished from sight. Upon seeking them out, a great-grandchild discovered the elderly pair engaging intimately within the laundry room. This shocking event forever haunted the child's dreams. Witnessing an 83-year-old couple in an intimate act could be your unsettling experience.